Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. In today's episode, there's not a lot to talk about. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. We're going to go pretty much, we got some new news on the Robert Quinn situation. Obviously, a very prominent player in the National Football League retired. And we have some comments that Brian Flores made, obviously our new head coach, about tanking and how that's not necessarily true, and we'll dive into that. So if you like that, then stick around. And we're going to do some speculation on who's going to be the next Dolphins quarterback as the topic for the show. And we're also going to go into fan questions as we always do. So if you like that, then stick around and listen to the show. So this first news story, we'll get this one out of the way because this was just, it is what it is. Dolphins in talks to have joint practices with the Buccaneers. Bruce Arians, this comes from the Dolphins Wire. Bruce Arians says Bucs are in negotiations with Dolphins to have joint practices. So, and that is a report from ESPN. With all that, if you're not familiar with this, teams usually do this. It's like it's training camp, but with another team. That's literally what it is. It's right before preseason games. It's literally right before it. Sometime, we're getting into summer and all that other stuff. It's right in the thick of training. Pretty much towards the end of training camp. So it's good for the team, especially if you get a team that's a good football team to practice against. Definitely you can gauge where your team is, especially at that point. I think it is an advantage. The downside to this kind of stuff is that you see a lot of injuries when this kind of stuff happens. Joint practices, a lot of injuries. D'Angelo Hall, Who else? Dustin Keller, if you guys remember, he was a really good tight end for the Jets that we signed that year. He had a really good preseason, and he tore his ACL. I think it was a joint practice. That can't be right. No. Who am I thinking of joint practices? I think it was Louis Delmas, actually, who tore his ACL. That's probably who it was. Pretty good safety. Had a pretty decent year with us his first season. Had the pick six against the Jaguars. I'm trying to think of some other major injuries. There's been a lot of them. I can't think of all of them. But in joint practices, it's pretty. In training camp, you always sustain some sort of injury. But especially in joint practices, there's a lot of injuries. So that's the only thing that I worry about when it comes to these type of things. So that's really all I have to say about it. It's good for the team if you can get through it healthy. It is an advantage. So let's get into this next news story. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. It's a great website if you guys don't know. I'm not, obviously, this show has zero sponsors, obviously. This is, so it's not like I'm over here. My point is this is a great, if you guys don't know about this site, it's a great site. And I guess if you have the team stream, if you have the NFL Rumors tab, it's basically the site. That's where they get all their news from. So this next news story, the Saints are interested in Robert Quinn. The market, again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. The market for Dolphins defensive end Robert Quinn is starting to take shape. Quinn, who will meet with the Cowboys on Tuesday, has drawn interest from the Saints, according to Armando Salguero of the Miami Herald. That's about it. So we have two camps. Dallas is still in play. They're not out of play here. He's just making his rounds, I guess. I don't really understand. He's literally visiting these teams. It's very weird. It's like he's a free agent. He's not a free agent. It's almost like he has a stake in the game, which is weird. Like he has some sort of weight pulled of where he goes. Like he can make a decision on it. It's very, very peculiar. I don't know. I can't really think of another time where this has happened. Obviously, we're going to pay most of his salary anyway, and either in order to get some compensation back for him, which is probably, we're basically buying draft picks for whoever we're trading for. I've heard rumors that we could possibly get a 4th round pick for him, which is pretty solid. That's really good. Obviously, depending on what year it is, it really doesn't matter. If it's 2020, that's fine. It's a 4th round pick. It's a 4th round pick, and especially for Robert Quinn. And whether he goes to Dallas or New Orleans, it does not really matter to me as long as we get good compensation for him. He's not a good defensive end. I've said this before. He's I was wondering about his pass. I mean, he's really just one-dimensional. He's not. He's very one-dimensional. He's a pass rush specialist. He doesn't do anything else really well. I was thinking about this the other day. If he could have been more effective if we ran more of a base 4-3 set as opposed to a wide 9 defense. Because the issue with him is most of the time the tackle really just carried him past the quarterback. He just really overran his rush lane. And that Josh Allen took huge advantage of that every single time, we played the Bills. It was just a huge hole that he could run through and scramble for. Our rush lanes were terrible. And Robert Quinn is a very much bend type of an end who beats you with speed. And he beats you with his bend ability. So a lot of the time, the tackles would just kind of run you past and that would open a huge lane for the quarterback to either step up in or just run through. And I think my point is his pass rush style to begin with, he gets wide of the tackle, and so to line him up even more wide, just his base stance, I think probably was a mistake. Granted, the wide 9 defense sucks in general. The Philadelphia Eagles have a great defense. They run the wide 9 defense, and they sucked at stopping the run last year. I hate that defense. I think it's just inherently bad, especially against the run. It's not bad on third down. But, especially like a third and long situation, I don't really think it increases your pass rush that much. If you have good defensive linemen, you don't need to come up with a scheme to make them better. That's just my opinion. But I was thinking about that the other day. Maybe the scheme just wasn't a great fit for his style of pass rush. And, I think you can make an argument for that. But regardless, he does not fit a hybrid defense. He could not switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4. When the Rams tried to use him at a 3-4 as an outside linebacker, it was really bad. And he can't go inside in a 3-4 or he'll get manhandled. So the only time we could really use him is if we ever used a 4-3 front. And, really the Patriots only do that on like first and second down. Sometimes, usually on third, you either go dime or nickel or dollar. So it's not... you're not really in a base defense. Excuse my dog for being stupid. I think that's really it for... Okay, there's more news. So, out of all the great quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, and Drew Lock, they have all met with the Dolphins. Dwayne Haskins is set to meet with the Dolphins. I think he already did, or maybe he hasn't already. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dwayne Haskins, it doesn't say the dates, it just says the teams, is to meet with 5 teams: Dolphins, Raiders, Broncos, Redskins, Giants. He had a great pro day. In my opinion, I think he had the best pro day out of any of them. They really focused on his weaknesses. Like, people criticize, like, when he rolls to the left, he struggles, and then they did that in the drills. Some people talk about his arm strength. I've seen a couple of people I don't know why, but like, not his arm strength, just the way the ball comes out of his hands. It's not very pretty. If you look at his spiral, it's not the tightest spiral in the world. I've seen some criticisms of that. But in his pro day, it was beautiful. I know he was throwing on air, but he did miss a pass. The deep routes that they ran were really hard throws to make. He has a really strong arm. He's super accurate. They did red zone drills. I love Dwayne Haskins. I thought he looked smooth. I think he just looked smooth. It just looked really easy for him. He's a beautiful passer. He's more mobile than people give him credit for. I've seen some people, I think Chris Sims compared him. He has like Sam Darnold athleticism, and I think that's a great comparison for what kind of athlete he is in terms of running around in the pocket. And, the only real thing, he's just his experience. He's only started for one season. He's just started. He doesn't have a lot of games under his belt. But neither does Kyler Murray. So, I whether it's a fair criticism or not, I really don't. It is what it is. Also, he's not one of those guys. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this with every quarterback, but you definitely do have to have a roster. He's a traditional quarterback, so you have to have a roster around him in terms of you have to have someone who can protect him, or an offensive line that can protect him. He's not Deshaun Watson. He's not Cam Newton. He's not, Aaron Rodgers. He can't make a bad offensive line look good, which is probably my biggest criticism of him. Because there's quarterbacks like Tua and Kyler that can do that. I think they can probably elevate the talent around them just with pure physical talent more than Dwayne. Even Drew Lock to a certain extent, even though he ran fast, that does not show up on tape. When you watch Drew Lock play, he does not look athletic. Like, he's not running for 15 yards on a consistent basis. He's not escaping pass rushers on a consistent basis. So even though he's just he played in D1 college. Well, he never really did anything. Like, people have compared him to John Elway, for God's sakes. Granted, never seen John Elway play for Stanford in college, so I don't know how he played, but John Elway is known for his athleticism and scrambling ability. Drew Lock will not be known for that in the National Football League. So I don't really, see that either in Drew Lock. But I like Dwayne Haskins. I think he's gonna be a very good quarterback for someone. But again, you definitely have to, I wouldn't, if he had to play behind our offensive line right now, that's trouble. All right, next news story. Dolphins head coach Brian Flores refutes talk of tanking/rebuilding. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. New Dolphins head coach Brian Flores has predictably refuted the talk that the team is tanking in 2019 and would not concede that the club is embarking on a multi-year rebuild. Flores told NFL Network, quote, "I think every team's rebuilding. That's the league. Every team rebuilds every year because no team is the same every year. I can tell you we're going to try. We're going to go out there and try to win every game. I think the foundation is there, and we'll just, like every other team, we're building." Now, this is just, there's two schools of thought on this one. Right now, our roster is not very good at all. The lines are terrible. Offensive lines, Laramie, at least we have Laramie on the offensive line. The defensive line, we have zero playmakers, at all. We don't have a pass rusher right now. We don't have any defensive linemen, really. Vincent Taylor is probably our best defensive lineman. And I think he's going to be a pretty good player. So, that's not saying much. Let's just put it that way. So those are big holes. We didn't do anything in free agency. We didn't even get any budget guys to improve the defensive line. There's no one there. It's literally a desert town. Offensive line as well. There's just, you can't win in the National Football League with the trenches being that depleted. So to say that we'll be to say that we'll be competitive this year, I think is a stretch because that's a lot to fill. Is it possible? Yeah, anything's really possible, especially in the National Football League. It's it's the most unpredictable league on the planet. So, but I definitely think this team is as of right now, this team is not very good. We'll see what happens at the draft. Even if they took a rookie quarterback, I would not be comfortable starting him this year, just because the team's just not. It's not there. It's just not there yet. Hopefully we fix that in this draft and realize what's important is fixing the trenches. And thank God this draft is filled with great players, especially on the defensive side. You can get a really good defensive lineman who can change, like a superstar pass rusher and an all-around defensive end, for that matter, who can change the defensive line for the better. So thank God this draft fits our needs. And again, ladies and gentlemen, quarterbacks do not fix everything. Aaron Rodgers missed the playoffs last year. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever. He's probably the greatest in terms of just, other than winning, he's the greatest quarterback. If you don't count, you talk about individual play and accolades. It doesn't get much better than Aaron Rodgers. So, and even he's missed the playoffs the last 2 years. Granted, some of that's injuries. At least the first year was injuries, but this year, he played. He wasn't 100% healthy, but he played the entire year, and he didn't even make the playoff. It takes more than just the quarterback, and I think we forget that sometimes. The Giants are definitely forget. Giants fans are stupid. They're acting like, oh, we're just a quarterback away. No, you're not. No, you're not. Your offensive line's terrible, and your defensive line. It's the same situation we're in. People. I love the fact, dude. Our offense is not. In terms of skill positions, it's not bad. We have we're one of the fastest offenses in the league. Pair that up with Ryan Fitzpatrick's arm, that's a really good combo. And hopefully DP can show up. because he's talented, and he's you know what? He's a Chris Godwin. If you know who I'm talking about from the Buccaneers, I mean, he's basically Chris Godwin. So, and Chris Godwin's a very good receiver, but Devontae can be that, and to be honest with you, he could be better than that. Will he ever be that? I don't know, but and the backfield's loaded. So if we got this offensive line figured out, we would be a competitive football team on offense. At least in my opinion. If we fix the offensive line, we get a tackle, we get, maybe some, we signed Chris Reed. I don't know if we've talked about that. I mean, that's not something to really talk about, and get a good guard in the draft, get a good tackle. I mean, this offense could be very competitive. Same thing on defense. Their secondary is loaded. If Minka, we've heard that Minka's going to be playing free safety. The second cornerback spot, Eric Rowe is no slouch. He's not terrible. He's just inconsistent. And he's still a young player, so that could change. But Bobby's a dominant slot corner. And Xavier's a really good outside corner, one of the best in the league. Rashad Jones is one of the best strong box safeties in the National Football League, and that's not even close. He's the best. He's definitely the best ball hawking strong safety in the NFL. Minka's a great player in general. It doesn't matter where you play him. So there's really too many. If we can just fix the trenches in this, I really do feel like this team, like the talent thing, is just so overblown. And I know that's a lot. It's not like I'm saying, oh, you got to fix one position. No, you have to fix almost every position on both lines, on offense and defense. That's a big deal. But we're not that far away. And that's fixable in the draft, especially because of the talent pool that's there. We could be competitive. I really do believe that. If Ryan Fitzpatrick could give us a 16-game season like he did for the 2015-2014 Jets, dude, that's a 10-win team. We have a loaded backfield, in my opinion. Kenyon's a great running back. Unfortunately, he dealt with some, terrible circumstances last year and surroundings, but he's a really good player. Really, really good player. And Kalen Ballage is definitely good enough to start in the league, and he's coming off the bench. His first game really getting any reps and playing time, he had 175 yards rushing against the Minnesota Vikings. Albert Wilson was dominating before he hurt his hip. Jakeem Grant was playing really well before he hurt. I think he hurt his hip as well. Or I think he blew a quad. I can't remember. DP just has to show up and give us something, for God's sakes. Kenny Stills is another deep threat. I mean, this team has a lot of speed and people who can catch the football and who can work the middle of the field. Albert Wilson is great at that. And he's great and we have a lot of run after the catch talent there as well. It's just the trenches that we have to fix. So this whole thing like, the Dolphins are so far away from winning, like it's a multi-year rebuild, is ridiculous in my opinion. Are you talking about winning the Super Bowl or going to the playoffs? Because a good coaching staff, which is what I believe that we have, could take if we fix the offensive line and we fix the defensive line, the stuff that's surrounding those lines is good enough to make the playoffs. Minka Fitzpatrick, Pro Bowler. Rashad Jones, Pro Bowler. Xavier Howard, Pro Bowler. Bobby McCain, Pro Bowl level slot corner. That's 4 Pro Bowlers in the secondary. Oh, dropped my thing. Look at the offense. Kenyon Drake, if James Conner can make the Pro Bowl, then Kenyon Drake can make the Pro Bowl, right? Great player, and we all know he's a great player. Albert Wilson looked really good before he got hurt. That offense is better than a lot of people give it credit for. I'm gonna stop rambling about this, but this whole multi-year, this might take 3 to. He's got to weather the storm. Is ridiculous, dude. It does not take that long to fix on offensive and defensive line. If it takes you more than 2 years to do that, there's something wrong with you. Look at John Dorsey in Cleveland. Look at Chris Ballard in Indianapolis. I hope I'm saying his name right. It should not take you that long to fix those 2 positions. And again, like I said, if you fix those positions, it feels like I'm saying this is just one guy, that the team's one guy. It's not. But To say it's a multi-year rebuild is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So that's all I have to say about this whole rebuilding nonsense with Brian Flores. Not to mention, before we move on to the last news story of the day, not to mention the tight end position. There's a lot of potential there. Is there proven talent there? Absolutely not. The only proven player we have is Dwayne Allen, who's a really good run blocking player. That's it. But Mike Gesicki could be something special. I still believe he can. And if people want to throw around the Adam Gase thing, where because Devontae Parker wasn't good last year, it's Adam Gase's fault, then you could do that with Mike Gesicki too. You cannot contradict yourself and say that it only works for certain players. That's ridiculous. And the argument that I have against the whole Adam Gase thing with Devontae Parker, he had his best 2 seasons with Adam. Statistically. And when he was with Joe Philbin and Dan Campbell, who was the interim head coach, he was terrible. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't this great receiver either. So, again, injuries, everything. I know, it's Devontae Parker we're talking about. But I will say this. It wasn't like he was so far off. He was 200 some odd yards off of a 1,000-yard season. So there is something there. I'm not saying there's not, but to say it's Adam's fault is ridiculous. But again, to say this is, in this list, we'll leave it off in this, because I could talk about this forever, and I know I'm repeating myself, but to say that this is a 4 to 5 year, to 3 to 4 to 5 year thing is ridiculous, dude. That is so stupid. That is so stupid. This team should be fit. Listen, if we have one down year, that's all you get. That's all the leg room you get. Because after that, you have another draft in free agency. You should be able to fix the problems this team has. You should be able to really fix it through this draft. At least most of it. Considering if we don't take a quarterback, then fix that in the 2020 draft. Max 1 season, and then the next season we should be ready to at least compete. Max the 2019 season, but in 2020 we should be able to compete. To make excuses for that would be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, especially since how good this offensive staff is, or this coaching staff in general is. You just fix the lines. That's it. That's all you have to do. You have receivers that can get open on a consistent basis if they stay healthy. Especially with a quarterback who can throw downfield like Ryan Fitzpatrick. You have a backfield that can take pressure off of him if you give them a good offensive line. And when they didn't have a good offensive line, they performed at a high level. Like a really bad offensive line that they were behind. That offense will be fun to watch. Defensively, the secondary, look at their production last year. Led the league, and they finished, I think, 3rd or 2nd in the NFL in picks. For most of the season, they led the league in interceptions. For most of the season. Fix the defensive line. And again, I want to stress this. I know I've just repeated myself. But I'm not saying this team's one player away. But again, and this last time I'm going to say it. To say this is a 3 to 4 to 5 year thing is ridiculous. Alright, let's move on. This last news story comes from ESPN. Rob Gronkowski officially retires via Instagram. And that's it. Yeah, this is obviously watching Gronk's entire career makes me feel very old, but watching Gronk's entire career, I watched Tony Gonzalez, who was considered the best tight end of all time. Jimmy Graham, saw him in his heyday, obviously. We all did. All 3 of these players we should have at least saw. You would have to be super young if you didn't. And in my opinion, he's the greatest of all time. Didn't really see all of Shannon Sharp's glory. But he's not considered the best tight end of all time. So, and I think Jimmy Graham, I think he should be up there. His dominance was ridiculous. Jimmy Graham in his prime is as good as it gets. In my opinion, Gronk is the greatest tight end to ever live. And I don't even think it's close. I think he's better than John Mackey, Kellen Winslow, Shannon Sharp. I don't even think it's close. Especially, you look at his postseason. Just because you get to the postseason, not only did he get there all the time, but he performed at a very high level. He's had so many iconic catches. The one against the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. This recently, the Super Bowl. The one against the AFC Championship, in the AFC Championship game versus the Chiefs. He looked like a tackle out there last year. He was the best run blocking tight end in football. Like, he could take a defensive end one-on-one easy. He's the greatest tight end of all time. He's the most dominant, the most unstoppable, just crazy. Greatest hands, best red zone threat, dominated the middle of the field, commanded triple teams at times. Nobody could guard him one-on-one. Doesn't matter. He went against some athletic freaks in his career, and they still couldn't defend him. You think about that defense. They put Chris Harris. They put Aqib Talib on him. Still couldn't stop him. That's the best of the best. That's the best in the business at the time, especially in the 2015 season, and he still dominated. That defense. That was the no-fly zone he cooked. He also went against Legion of Boom. Cooked them too. In the Super Bowl, when they tried to put KJ Wright on my guy. Straight up cooked him. Cooked Cam Chancellor. You think about just the stuff that he's accomplished. It's ridiculous. And not to mention him dominating us. Especially in Gillette Stadium. If you look at his stats here, some of his stats, he finished third all-time in receiving touchdowns for a tight end. He's number one in touchdowns in New England Patriots history. I think he's somewhere in the top 5 in all-time playoff receiving touchdowns for a tight end. No tight end has had a better postseason accolades than Gronk, and it's not even close. The closest is Shannon Sharp, but it's not even close. I don't know why my dogs are making that sound. I apologize. But yeah, Big Daddy Gronk is gone. Had a great career. Was drafted in 2009, I believe. It feels like, it doesn't feel like that long, but it was that long. And yeah, I think he's the greatest tight end of all time. So we had to bring that up. He's an AFC East rival. Dominated the division for years. I want to say it's sad news. But there is something about a great player retiring that you'll miss him. I remember when Calvin retired. There's so many great players. Anytime someone like this retires, you do miss them. In an interesting way, I would say. I'm not gonna miss playing him. That's for sure. But watching him on Sundays against other football teams, yeah, that was fun. I hate the Patriots with a burning passion, but Gronk was a very special player. And that was the last news story of the day, ladies and gentlemen. I think we'll do one topic, and then we'll get into the fan Q&A. And that topic is quarterbacks. I know we all love talking about quarterbacks. And who the next one of the Dolphins should be. Or will be, really. It's an interesting thing. Drew Lock, Dwayne Haskins, and Kyler Murray, the Dolphins have met with. They did a private work. The only team to do a private workout at Kyler Murray's pro day was the Miami Dolphins, which is interesting. I don't know how much you want to look into that. We sent Matt Moore to do the scouting, which was cool. But it is interesting. The Dolphins are clearly doing their research on quarterbacks. And again, you never know if a team will fall in love with the guy. I do think there are franchise quarterback guys. I think Kyler Murray is a franchise quarterback. I think Dwayne Haskins eventually will be one. And I think Drew Lock has potential to be one. So there's 3 guys right there. I think Kyler and Dwayne are worthy of a first round pick for sure. If Dwayne was there, and if Kyler was there, I would take him. And I'm for sure I would take him. Drew Lock is weird, dude. He's a weird one. I will say this: watching all 3 of their pro days, I think you can make an argument that Kyler had the best one. You know, it was weird that Dwayne Haskins looked like he was gonna, like he just got out of the Sahara Desert. But I think, I know people in my life that just sweat. Like, they just sweat for some reason. And it's not even that they're tired; they just have a disorder that runs in my family. So I'm used to that. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Some people just sweat. But it did look like he was literally just got off with Les Stroud from the Survivor show, for God's sakes, from back in the day. That's the only complaint. I thought that was just like not normal. Kyler's, there was not. I mean, it was perfect. Drew Lock, his was weird, dude. I'm not gonna talk about his throw, any of that. His interview that he did with NFL Network, I thought was weird. His confidence about him being such a great leader, I thought was ridiculous. I was like, dude, come on, man. Anytime I hear a quarterback who's about to be drafted say all the right things to the point where it's like, that is so ridiculous. It's just fake. Like, him like, my ability to lead men, like, come on, dude. Anytime a dude says my ability to lead men, I kind of check out. I'm like, dude, okay, you haven't even played it down yet in the National Football League. When you get popped by Von Miller in the mouth, and then I'll be like, okay. Just the whole thing about Baker Mayfield last year is everybody else was telling him how he was a great leader. You know what I'm saying? Baker never was like, I'm a great leader. It was everybody else saying, yeah, he's got the swag, he's a great leader. Everybody loves playing with him and for him. I don't think I once heard, now that I could be wrong, but not one time did I hear Baker talk about how I'm such a great leader of men and all this other stuff. He's just one of the guys. But with Drew Lock, for some reason, he has to sit here and tell us how much of a great leader he is. I just thought it was cringy. I'm like, dude, come on, dude. I don't even know, how you're supposed to answer that question, to be honest with you. It's like, oh, how's your leadership style or whatever? It's such a stupid question. Such a stupid question. But yeah, I didn't like the way he answered that question. It was very Josh Rosen, but it was even worse. It was cringy, in my opinion. You played at Missouri, Drew Lock. What? Let me put it this way. What did the leadership equate to? Do you know what I'm saying? What did it... granted, you played at Missouri. You're the doormat of the SEC. But what did it get you, Drew Lock? Did it get you the 28 touchdowns, the 44 you threw before the year before that? What did the leadership get you? I just think it's weird. I wish I could play the clip, dude. It's weird. Just go watch it. He says something about him going into the Giants locker room at one point. I can't remember verbatim of what he said, and I'm not even going to speculate, because I could be totally wrong. But it was just weird. Nobody should just be that confident that they're a leader. I can't remember anyone, even Tom. Tom, he has this cocky air about him, but he never says he's anything. Peyton didn't do that, ever. Drew doesn't do that. Russell definitely doesn't do that, but we just, he's a very humble man. It's just not, it's just even Aaron Rodgers, and people criticize him for not being a leader and all this other stuff. But, none of those guys ever do that. Josh Rosen did it last year, and it was so stupid that everybody who passed up on me made a mistake. All that stuff. That's just ridiculous. You shouldn't do that stuff like that. It's stupid. You haven't done anything yet. It's so ridiculous to say that. You haven't done anything yet. You're Josh Rosen, dude. You're Drew Lock. It's just, I don't know. I don't even know why I'm ranting about it. I just think it's weird. was a long pause. Let's get into the fan Q&A. I like Drew Lock a lot. No, excuse me. Let me take 2 steps back. I meant to say I like Dwayne Haskins a lot. I like Kyler Murray a lot. Those are the only 2 at this point. I've really cut everybody else out that I would use a first-round pick on. After that, I don't care about Daniel. If Daniel falls to the 3rd or 4th round, then I'll take him. But that's a big if. Will Grier, I don't like. You know, he can't drive a football to save his life. Every time, the whole, the mustard on the handle, does it fly out of his hands? It's very soft. He struggles to drive the football. His release is a wind-up. It's not a flick of the wrist. I don't like Will Grier. I like Ryan Finley a lot. Daniel Jones is fine. I'm trying to think of some other quarterbacks in this draft. That's about it. I don't like Will Grier. The Stidman guy from Auburn. This last year was not as impressive as the year previous. But I think he has potential. Is the best word to use for him. So that might be someone you take in the later rounds. If I had to say the later rounds, I would say Ryan Finley and Stidman from Auburn would be my guys. And maybe Daniel Jones if he's still there, but I doubt it. So that's enough about these quarterbacks. This is not going to be a long episode. We're only, 30 minutes in, half an hour in. There was not a ton of questions asked this week. But that's okay. We got 22 of them. That should take us. This first question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, do you think Albert Wilson will be a 1,000-yard receiver? Yeah, I think he could be. Will he be? That's a different thing. Yeah, I think he could. I think he could be. I wouldn't say he will, but he definitely has the talent to. It's just about the targets for him. He has the talent to do it, but I don't know how. I think we're going to spread things out a lot in this offense. So I think it just depends on targets, but talent-wise, yeah. This question comes from Will. He asks, how do you think Flores and his defense staff will handle TJ, Minka, and Rashad? I don't know what you do with TJ. I really don't, other than I would get rid of him. He could be Mark Barron and Dan Buchanan again, where you just convert him from strong safety to linebacker. He's bigger than those guys. He's like the same size as Mark, but he's way bigger than Buchanan. I think that's the only thing the way you could use TJ is that's the only way I would use him. He cannot play free safety. He's so bad in space. And so is Rashad. He blows way too many coverages when he's back there. He's so instinctual, and he takes way too many chances to be a free safety. Stupid chances, by the way. They're not good. And TJ is just not athletic enough to play back there. I mean, I just want you to think of a scenario where Odell Beckham, or I guess I shouldn't go superstar, but any elusive guy with one man to beat, and TJ is the guy you got to get through. Yeah, no. And the one thing that the defensive coaching staff said about TJ, and the one thing that he needs to improve on, this was in conferences, is that he takes too many too many big shots. Like, think of it as a hit stick in Madden. He takes way too many. Like, he doesn't tackle. He just tries to hit you with the big hit, and he misses a lot of tackles because of that. I can't have my free safety not being able to cover space, and coverage especially, and not being able to tackle. Those are two big things you have to do, and he just can't do it. So, if I'm Brian, I would have already gotten rid of TJ in some capacity, but it seems like he's going to be on the roster, so I'd play him at linebacker, at least try him there, and I'd put Rashad and Minka at free safety. I'd put Minka at free safety and put Rashad at strong safety. The second question comes to Corporate Gamer. He asks, I hope Jonah Williams falls to us because he could either be a very good right tackle or a guard for us. Left guard, he says. I would rather him play tackle. But, yeah, Jonah Williams is a good player. And I would put him at, like, right tackle, or I wouldn't move Laramie. Corporate Gamer. That was not a sigh of just, like anger. I don't know why I sighed like that. I was thinking about this before we get. I don't know, that's too much of a ramble. I'll probably save that from the end of the show. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, I've seen someone make a pro comparison of each of the top quarterbacks in the class, and these are what they are. Kyler Murray comparison, Russell Wilson. Dwayne Haskins comparison, Big Ben. Drew Lock comparison, Derek Carr. That's my comparison. Don't be stealing stuff, man. Daniel Jones comparison, Eli Manning. Will Grier comparison, Andy Dalton. Ryan Finley comparison, Alex Smith. Ryan Finley is not Alex Smith. I've seen people compare him to Brady, but he's not athletic enough to be Alex Smith. The Russell Wilson Kyler Murray thing is, yeah, that's the obvious one. Dwayne Haskins, Big Ben, no. He reminds me a lot of Warren Moon. Drew Lock, Derek Carr, yeah, I've said that in the past. He reminds me a lot of Derek Carr. I think he's more athletic than Derek Carr, though. He, physically is, but he doesn't ever use it. That's the thing. On tape, he's, not... He doesn't flash it. I thought Daniel Jones was way more athletic than him, watching them both play. When I watched them both play and did the podcast on both of them individually. But Drew ran a way faster 40 than. It just surprised me. I was like, that did not show up on tape. And I say tape like I'm a scout. I mean, just video, whatever the heck you want to call it. Daniel Jones, Eli Manning, no. Eli was never as athletic as Daniel. I don't really know who you want to compare Daniel Jones. His throwing mechanics are very Eli Manning, so yeah, I guess in that way. Will Grier, Andy Dalton, okay. I'm fine with that. I don't think he'll be as good as Andy Dalton. I don't think he has the arm that Andy Dalton had. Ryan Finley, not even close, actually. I think Andy Dalton has a way stronger arm. Ryan Finley, Alex Smith. No, just because of his athletic ability. More of a pocket passer, Ryan Finley. I would say the reason I'm saying Brady is because of the playing style. I'm not saying he'll be that good. Just playing style. Smooth passer, dink and dunk kind of a guy. Not really a gunslinger. Does everything right at the football. Throws a pretty football. This next question comes from DMAC. He says, do you think we need bigger... But, wait, hang on a second. So do I agree? Yeah, I mean, those are my opinions on it. This next question comes from DMAC. He asks, do you think we need bigger linebackers to run a hybrid 3-4 defense? Most of the Patriots linebackers weigh between 260 and 270. To run a hybrid defense, yeah. Well, because outside linebackers are basically defensive ends in a 3-4 system. They just rush the passer. Rarely, depending on what the coverage is, do you drop them back and who you're really utilizing at the outside positions. And your inside linebackers have to be big guys like a CJ Mosley. So, yes, we need bigger. That's the whole thing about Jerome Baker is, where do you play him? Because he can't play in the middle. He's not big enough. On the outside, he's not big enough. I don't know how they're going to use him. It's going to be interesting. And for Kiko, too, I mean, the only one that really fits is Raekwon. He's big. He's a perfect 3-4 defense linebacker, especially in the middle. I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that question. But do I think we need big? Yes, I do. This next question comes from JR. He says, I think Charles will be one of those outside guys. This next question comes from JR. He says, rumor that Arizona will be willing to trade for Rosen, I'm so sorry, guys. Let's start over. This question comes from JR. He asks, rumor that Arizona might be trading Josh Rosen for a 3rd-round pick. Would you like Miami to make that trade? I like Josh Rosen, the player. I think he's a good player. I like Dwayne Haskins and Kyler Murray more, though. So I would wait till after the draft to make that decision. So I would say no because of opportunities in the draft, and you never know what can happen. Corporate Gamer says, did you see Will Grier's pro day? Everyone is saying that he had the best pro day out of the quarterbacks. I did. I saw clips of it. I didn't see the entire thing. I watched Kyler's. I watched his. I watched Drew Lock's. And I watched Dwayne Haskins. I watched every single minute of it. All 3 of those guys. I couldn't really find Will Grier's full thing. I just found clips. But no one is saying that Will Grier had the best pro day. I have not seen one person say that. Sorry, Corporate Gamer. I just haven't seen that at all. I think everybody's either saying Dwayne or Kyler, from what I've seen. At least on the NFL Network and Undisputed. I think there was some segment there. But anything in the national media, I've seen it's between those two. Will asks, his question is, which players do you think are going to be the most affected by our switch to the 4-3? Who do you think will thrive, and who are you concerned about? I'm sure we'll see us with some 3-4 nickel dime sets. Yeah, of course. I'm concerned about Jerome because he had a really good rookie year, and especially for a linebacker. I mean, he made so many plays last year. I think his best games were against the Bengals and then the Jets at home. But I don't know what you're gonna like. He concerns me because I just don't know where you play him. He's just not big enough to play on the outside. He's not. I guess he's big enough. I guess you could. If Daniel Buchanan could play in the middle on a 3-4, then so can Jerome. So I guess you could do that. But I really don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what you do with Jerome. He's a very good player, but I definitely could use him in the 4-3 sets. He's actually a pretty good pass rusher. When we blitzed him, he was pretty successful. So maybe he can do that. I worry about when teams run at him. If you stand him up on the edges, like in a 3-4 system. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, think about Von Miller lining up on the defensive line. That's what that is. You're basically a defensive end. You have the same job as a defensive end in the 4-3 system, especially against the run. Can Jerome can he do that? I don't know. That's a great question. I think he plays better in space, not at the point of attack. So that's an interesting. That's one I can't even figure out. I don't know. So the one I'm most concerned about is Jerome because he's such a good player. I really like Jerome Baker. I just don't know he's a great coverage linebacker, and he's a good blitzer too. So I just don't know if he's big enough to play on the outside. I don't know. I don't think at all. I know. So that's the one I'm most concerned about. I think the players who could improve from the switch is definitely Charles Harris. Playing him on the outside, that's what he did in college, is stand up. So to stand him up now, I think is perfect. I think the thing about Charles Harris is I think we have to drop this whole thing where he could be a 3-down guy. I think he's a 3-down pass rush specialist type of a guy. I think that's what he is. I don't think he's a 3-down guy. Corporate Gamer says, if Daniel Jones is available in the second round, I hope we still pass on him. Would you agree? Ooh, that's tough, man. Yeah, I would agree with that. Dude, the more and more I watch of Daniel Jones, the worse it gets. And that's sad to say that, dude. But if you watch some of his bad games, they're not great. And, I think he got blown. I can't remember. I think it was Wake Forest. I can't remember who it was. But he got destroyed. I don't think it was Purdue. It might have been Purdue. But Purdue had actually a pretty decent team. But I think it was Wake Forest. But he got blown. That was a terrible game. If it was Purdue, then it's a different. I can't remember who it was. Purdue's actually a pretty decent team, but there were just games where he doesn't look very good. But also, you could equate that to the team around him. I mean, the team around him was terrible. His receivers sucked. But he does throw a pretty deep ball. He's an athletic guy. He's tougher to bring down. His instincts suck. There are opportunities where he could get loose and pick up a first down, and he doesn't. Very Ryan Tannehill-esque in that way. So, yeah. Corporate Gamer asks, why haven't we signed Quinton Spain yet? We're the only team that have shown interest in him. I don't know if Quinton... I'm actually going to Google this right now. I think Quinton's I think he's been signed. I'm not sure. But this is an interesting one. Let me Google this really quick, guys. I'm Googling right now. I am typing in the buttons. Quinton Spain. Quentin Tarantino came out. Quinton Spain. Let's see here. So he has a visit. He has a visit with the Bills. So he hasn't been signed yet, but his only scheduled visit is with the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, I love Quinton Spain. Remember when Josh Klein, was it Josh Klein who got released? I was like, that would have been a solid signing, but I can't remember who picked him up. Yeah, Quinton Spain would be awesome. Will asks, what do you think about their handling of the Robert Quinn situation? I think it's a good way to do it. I like the whole, paying the salary to get draft picks. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I like it. He needs to go regardless. So he doesn't fit the scheme, and he's a pass rush specialist. Mario asks, what's your opinion on Drew Lock? If he's at 13, do you think the Dolphins will draft him? In my opinion, I don't think he's a winner, and I feel like he might be just another average quarterback in the National Football League. He has the talent to be something special. He really does. But, I don't know. I'm just not sold on him to where I'm like, there are hesitations when it comes to Drew Lock. Dwayne Haskins and Kyler Murray, I'm very confident about those two being franchise quarterbacks. I'm not confident about Drew Lock being a franchise quarterback. But there are a lot of things to like about him. He's got great arm strength. He's got a really good release. You know, he's got good mechanics. He moves well in the pocket. He's very smooth in that way. He can make all the tough throws. He can make off-platform throws. He did not play with a good supporting cast in Missouri. He still had very productive years. He still for 28-8 and 44 the year before that. So there's a lot to like about Drew Lock. It really is just a gut feeling about him. There's nothing really bad I can say about him. You know, he has had the most experience. He played in the SEC. I think all three of them have potential to be very good. I would not be mad if the Dolphins took... I would not be upset if the Dolphins took Drew Lock. I wouldn't. My opinion on Drew Lock is... I would say he's... Because the more I think about it, the more I like him. In terms of, like, his accolades. Like, they're pretty good when you think about it. I mean, his completion percentage was never great. But he played at Missouri. He still was productive, touchdown-interception ratio-wise. He started for 3 years in the SEC and was productive. He had some really good throws against Alabama. I like all three of them, man. It's hard. But every time I talk about Drew Lock, every time on this podcast when I start talking about him, I start warming up to him again. Every single time, dude. Every single time. This question comes from Will. He asks, Are you warming up to the possibility about picking Haskins, or do you think it's just another infamous Miami Dolphins smokescreen? By the way, I wonder, do you make final mock drafts? Yeah, I'm still doing that fan mock draft thing, where all of you guys will pick, like, I'll give you a number, like, who will the Cardinals pick in round 1? We'll do it the week before the draft. I don't know who I'm going to pick for. I might pick for the Dolphins. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But we'll definitely do a mock draft, and it will be like the fan mock draft. He says, are you warming up to the possibility? Yes, I love Dwayne Haskins. That would be a great pick, in my opinion. Steven asks, do you think Stephen Ross might push for Drew Lock because of his love for Missouri? Also, what do you believe we can get for a third for Robert Quinn? Love the podcast, by the way. Thank you very much, Steven, who asked that question. Or Stefan. I don't know how you want to say that one. He says, because I've seen that spelled and said both ways. But anyway, he says, I don't know. I didn't know Stephen Ross had a love for Missouri. I know Michigan he has a love for. Obviously, that's his he went to school there. But anyway, I was about to say the thing. I can't remember what the word is now. I don't know. I don't know about the whole Stephen. I don't know if there is a connection there. I couldn't tell you. If we get a third-round pick for Robert Quinn, that would be stealing. This next question comes from Adam Burke. He says, love your show. I appreciate that, Adam. He asks, do the Finns still have a shot at Murray? If so, what is the scenario in getting him? They have 0 shot at Kyler Murray. And the scenario that they get him is Arizona passing on him, and then the Giants and the Raiders pass on him, and then the Bengals pass on him. But I feel like if he got close enough for the Bengals to get him, then I think we would trade up. But I guess you have to get past the Giants and the Cardinals. This next question comes from Sam. He says, listeners want to know how old you are. How long have you been a Finns fan? Favorite Dolphin? What are your currently pursuing in life? School, career goals, great job on the podcast. I always tune in once you post fins up, foes down. I mean, I like to keep personal stuff personal, so I'm going to continue to do that, so I won't tell you how old I am. And I'm not going to tell you what the heck I do. And I'm not, I hope that doesn't come off as, like, whatever. I just don't think it matters. And I think a lot of people attach that kind of stuff to you and make judgments on what the kind of person you are because of that, so I'm not going to say it. That's why I keep it unknown. I've been a Fins fan my entire life, basically. My favorite Dolphin of all time is Dan Marino. It's not even close. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to hear that from you, from all of you, that you like the podcast. But yeah, I just like to keep that stuff personal. That's just my stance on that. I don't know. It's just how I am. This next question comes from Will. He says, in hindsight, do you think it was wise to never get competition for Tannehill? Omar Kelly has confirmed there was tension between the team and Gase. Apparently, he would never criticize Tannehill, but constantly harp down on other players, not running routes and plays right. Bill and great coaches like him aren't afraid to call out their quarterbacks, probably strengthening the quarterback and a team's resolve. Yeah, that's true. I think all of that's true, and it makes a lot of sense, especially last year when we were losing all those games. I think everybody lost faith in Tannehill, including the fans, and even the fans that were on his side just completely was like, yeah, I just can't do it anymore. Was it wise to never get competition for Tannehill? Yeah, that was not wise at all. But there's a contradiction there with Omar Kelly, though. He was talking about how the receivers at one point revolted on him in like 2014 or 2013. Now, if that happened, it happened. But there are players in that locker room that we know for a fact and said publicly, like Kenyon Drake, that they miss Tannehill and that is their quarterback. And they literally said, I can't wait to have my quarterback back. That was Kenyon Drake who said that. There were other players, I can't remember who they were right now, but when Tannehill was coming back, they were excited about him coming back, and they were because they liked him. So and that was reported from Omar and everybody else. Like, it's very weird how it's like, what the heck was Tannehill then? Was he this or was he that? Like, it's very weird. Will asks, looking at the Jets' moves recently, what kind of emotions do you think are going to be flowing through the team and / or yourself on that Monday Night Football game coming up? I personally hope X will pick off 2 bubble screens and Drake has a monster game. I think we all hope that. Who cares, dude? I hope the Jets. I mean, obviously, I hope we kill the Jets. The Jets aren't as good as everybody. I mean, Le'Veon Bell's a great player. Sam Darnold had an underratedly bad rookie year. I don't know. I don't think they're this great team. I think their defense got worse. Apparently, Greg Williams and Adam Gase already don't like each other. I think it's a whole rigmarole. This is going to be the last question. I said there was not many questions. I couldn't even get through all 22 of them. Thank you for Sam and TRMC that all ask questions. And I might not get to your questions. Okay, so this question comes from Sam. He says, I have to hurry up. He says, listen to the official Dolphins pod. Heard Fitz speak and sounds like he has something to prove. He talked about having other offers but chose the Dolphins because it gave you the best opportunity to start. Would you be disappointed if we went 11-5 and made the playoffs but first round loss, or win one more game than last year and end up in the same draft spot? If we win 11-5, I'm definitely not going to be disappointed. I'm going to be so excited. But if we had the same record, ended up in the same draft spot, I don't know if I would. Yeah, that would suck. All right, so I think we don't have another question. Sorry, guys. But yeah, thank you to everybody who commented. That is going to be it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. And I cannot wait to do another one. I always love doing this. This is awesome. I really appreciate everybody saying that they love the podcast. It means a lot. And I'm SkyX1383, and I will see you guys in the next one.